In that Labour government, our next speaker will be our People's Chancellor, the brilliant John McDonnell MP.
First of all, on behalf of Jeremy and all of us, really thank all of you who participated in the leadership campaign this year. It was a tremendous result. I was worried in case we stepped back and then argue as a result of the 140,000 that were not allowed to vote, the suspensions and the purges that went on. I was anxious that in any way if we fell back in terms of the overall level of support, it would be used against us. What you did as a result of your hard work, your commitment and dedication and mobilisation is that you increased Jeremy's majority, increased his mandate, and actually enabled him, therefore, to bring to conference a set of policies that we've now endorsed as the platform from which we'll develop our programme for the next general election. Thanks for what you did. I'm really grateful. I just hope now that this isn't an annual event and that we are able now to stabilise the organisation. And what Catherine said was right. What was interesting throughout that leadership debate was the regularity in which Owen Smith said, I agree with Jeremy. I agree with Jeremy. There seemed to be no division. Leave Trident to one side. There seemed to be no division on the policies that actually was being debated at that point in time. And I agree. I also think that's down to what you've done. That's down to the way you've debated over recent years. Because it's not long ago, 18 months ago, we were an austerity party. We went into a general election with austerity-like policies and with a fiscal rule that would ensure that we implemented austerity. That's been transformed. It's as a result of the work of this organisation linked with others across the movement. When we founded Labour Against Austerity, it was on the basis of analysis of the crisis at that point in time. We pointed out what neoliberalism was all about enforcing the free market, about privatisation, undermining trade union rights, which turned our economy into a casino economy, and which enabled exploitation and the withdrawal of the state from the basic provisions that any state would want to, literally had a duty to implement. And we predicted then two things. One, that they would be hardship, and two, that it would fail. Well, you've heard in the workshops today, we were absolutely accurate in both those predictions. In terms of hardship, we said then, if you withdraw the state from the basic provisions of support, what will happen? Homelessness will rise on a scale we've not seen. We've now got a housing crisis in this country that we've not seen since the Second World War. Homelessness spiralling, repossessions at a level we've not most probably seen now for over the last 15, 20 years. We have a state in which doesn't even feed its population. 1 million emergency allocations last year through the food banks, and that's just the tip of the iceberg that goes on. We have a state that's operated brutally in terms of withdrawing basic levels of provision in terms of benefits. All of us have actually experienced, I'm sure, exactly what Catherine experienced today. People with disabilities desperately trying to get the benefits they need just to survive. And we pointed that out time and time again, what the consequences of austerity would be. Human suffering on a scale we've not seen for a generation. We now know the evidence. 590 suicides associated with the WCA, the Work Capability Assessment, and the withdrawal of benefits and sanctions. 1 million sanctions a year. If you get a chance, I pay tribute to Ken Loach, the work that he's done. If you get a chance, go and see I, Daniel. It's a film, it's a work of fiction. Actually, it's virtually a documentary about what we experience in our constituency surgeries every day, about the withdrawal of benefits that forces people to the edge of civilised existence, and some over that edge. And I pay tribute to Deepak and others who've taken direct action to expose what's gone on in the The impact at work. Well, Roger's just explained what's happening in our public services, and that goes nowhere near what's happening in the private sector itself. We've spoiled the Sports Direct, but that's one example of the brutality and bullying that goes on at work. But the insecurity, the 0 hours contracts where no one knows from one week to the next whether they'll have any form of work whatsoever. The 200,000 is the prediction where not even the minimum wage is being paid in this country, but there's a lack of enforcement because of the cutbacks in HMRC to enable any effective enforcement to take place. It is as a result of the undermining of trade union rights in this country that many people now are not represented at all. Whereas 2/3 of our workers were covered by collective bargaining only 20 years ago, only 20% are now. So it's no surprise that wages are undermined, people are insecure, and they suffer bullying at work. That's the result of the austerity measures that have been introduced. And we predicted that. Seminar after seminar, conference after conference, you can map out where our predictions in terms of hardship would come right. But what we also said, economically, it would fail as well. And that's even on the Tories' own terms of reducing the deficit. They've failed. It was supposed to be eliminated last year completely. They're not even 2/3 of the way there, and this month we're seeing there's predictions that will actually increase again. They're leaving us, when they go out of government, they'll leave us with 1.7 trillion of debt. And this is supposed to be a government that also introduced austerity measures and programmes that were supposed to eliminate the deficit and reduce debt. But the worst thing about them is that they've undermined what fundamentals there are in the economy. When you want to earn a living, you have to be productive. Productivity now is actually on a scale, well, compare it with Germany and France. When workers go to work in Germany and France, by Thursday they'll produce what a British worker produces by Friday and even sometimes Saturday. And that's because of lack of investment. On their own terms, they've failed to invest, and government investment in particular, falling in every year of this Parliament and the last 6 years as well. So it's no wonder the fundamentals of our economy are so rickety. And that's why we're now moving into more economic stormy weather. Not just because of Brexit, the fundamentals were undermined before that as a result of 6 years of a coalition Tory-led government. And they blame Brexit. Well, actually, the handling of the Brexit negotiations, even before they start, you've seen the product of that. A British Prime Minister is given 5 minutes to talk to other European leaders as they put their coats on and go to get their taxis. That's the status they've reduced us to in Europe as a result of their attitude to our European policy. No government should be allowed to get away with not being able to house and feed and ensure the decent employment of its people. That's why this government has got to go. And go Tory tacticians are judging whether or not there should be an early election next May, or they go to 2020 when the boundary commissions kick in and supposedly give them a natural advantage in terms of seats. Just as an aside on that, I find it offensive, to be frank, that they're reducing parliamentary seats from 650 to 600, while they're stuffing the House of Lords with over 800 unelected representatives. So that's democracy. This is an elected dictatorship. And they're trying to judge whether they go in May or leave it to 2020 or whatever. And some are thinking that the Labour Party are weak and they should go early. Well, the message to all our members now, particularly the parliamentary Labour parties, the message that came from the leadership election and the conference. The message to Labour supporters and MPs alike is unite. Unite in the face of this Tory government. Because if they do come to May, and to be frank, my view is bring it on, because I want to get rid of this government as soon as we possibly can. So we'll only do that. We'll only be able to defeat them if we unite as a party. That's the message to everyone at every level, whether rank and file or within the Parliamentary Labour Party. And I think we can do it. Because I think the reason Jeremy got elected the first time and the second time as well is exactly as every speaker has said, is it was a message of hope. Hope of what? Hope that we can create a society that's radically fairer, more equal, more democratic. Yes, based upon a prosperous economy, but that prosperity is sustainable both environmentally and economically, but where that prosperity is shared by everybody. That's the sort of society we want to create. I say it again, It's socialism. That's what socialism means. A fair, more democratic, prosperous, yes, but making sure that that prosperity is shared by all. How are we going to do it? Well, the programmes that you've discussed in the various seminars and the conferences that we've had in recent years under the banner of Labour Against Austerity. First of all, we want a fair taxation system. We want the rich and the corporations to pay their taxes. One stop. We know now. There's been a debate this week about what the tax gap is. The government now admits, as a result of campaigning, and let me just pay tribute to other direct action campaigns called UK Uncut, because if it wasn't for them, it would not be on the agenda at all. The government now alleges that the tax gap is around 32 to 34 billion. They say that and do virtually nothing about it. Others have said significantly more. You know, Prem Seeker and others, and Richard Murphy, even put it up as high as 120 billion. If we only collected half that amount, we could wipe out the deficit and start investing again. We want to ensure also that we have a fair taxation system. So let's be clear about this. We are opposing the cuts in capital gains tax to go to the 14,000 richest families in this country. We want to ensure the corporations pay their way, and that's why we'll oppose any further cuts in corporation tax. Why? Because the government said if you cut corporation tax, the corporations will invest. Actually, they're sitting on between 500 and 700 billion pounds worth of earned income that they're not investing. This is simply a way of giving more money to shareholders. And this year, for the first time in maybe a generation, more of our income is now going to shareholders and rentiers than it is to the workers and the creators of wealth in this country. That's why our economy is failing. So if we have a fair taxation system, we can then invest. That's why we've said we're going to set up a national investment bank. We're going to do 250 billion of direct investment, but through the National Investment Bank, 100 billion. That'll lever in at the European Investment Bank rates another 150 billion. Can you imagine what we could do with 500 billion pounds worth of investment in our infrastructure? Making sure we build the rails, the renewable energy, the broadband that we need to modernise our economy. Because what we want to do is make sure we invest so that wages can rise and skills can rise, and we become the technological centre, the logistical centre, but also the renewable centre. An example for the rest of Europe, how you can have a mission to completely decarbonise your economy. That's the future we want to create. But you can only do it as well. You can only secure that future if you have a democratic system. And that means democracy at work as well as democracy at the ballot box. That's why we want to double the cooperative sector. That's why we want to introduce real worker representation and control within companies themselves. And yes, that's why we want to restore trade union rights. And let me give the commitment again. In the first 100 days of a Labour government, we will scrap the Trade Union Act. We will start the process of restoring trade union rights. What will it mean? It will mean the end to zero-hours contracts. It will mean guaranteed employment hours for people. It will mean a real living wage. And we're saying a real living wage is £10 an hour, not the one that the government is putting forward as a con to people. All of that will give us the opportunity of creating the society that I think people out there will want to support. So we've got to seize the opportunity. This is Carpe Diem. Which one of you 2 years ago thought there was any prospect, again, of having a socialist leader of the Labour Party? None of us. We've now got that opportunity of a lifetime. We've got to seize it with both hands. And you know, 600,000 people have seized it with both hands by becoming members of our party and growing us now, not just as an electoral machine, and that's critical, but as a social movement that makes sure that when we win elections, we stay in power with the policies to transform our society. So I say this now, what we need, I've said time and time again, courage now. Courage, yes, they're throwing everything against us in the media. They're throwing everything against us in terms of the establishment because you dared to elect a socialist leader. They're saying to you, get back in your box. This is the 1% saying to the 99%, you will not have control of your destiny. But what we're saying is courage absolute determination, but above all else, work together, united in solidarity. Solidarity.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for coming. It's been a wonderful day, and let's carry on the fight. Thank you.